Alex Thompson was not just any resident of the quaint seaside community of Harborview, they were a dedicated Coast Guard officer, deeply committed to serving both their country and the local waters. With a love for the ocean that began in childhood, Alex had spent countless hours mastering sailing and boating, skills honed through rigorous training and real-life experiences on the sea. Their boat, a sleek, well-maintained vessel named Serenity, was not just a means of escape, it represented freedom and adventure. In stark contrast, Karen Mitchell embodied the quintessential HOA president, stereotypical, entitled, and notoriously difficult. With her meticulously manicured lawn and ever-watchful eye, she took pride in enforcing the strict regulations of the Homeowners Association with an iron fist. To her, every infraction was a personal affront to her authority, and she relished the power that came with her position. Residents learned quickly to tread carefully around her, she thrived on control and often wielded her influence with little regard for fairness. The tension between Alex and Karen simmered beneath the surface, fueled by differing attitudes toward community living. While Alex believed in camaraderie and mutual respect among neighbors, Karen seemed to thrive on dictating terms and enforcing rules. This uneasy dynamic set the stage for an inevitable clash between two very different worlds, one grounded in service and honor, the other in entitlement and rigidity. Little did either know that their conflict would soon escalate into a showdown neither could have anticipated. Harborview was a picturesque coastal community, where white picket fences lined the streets and colorful flower beds adorned nearly every home. The salty breeze carried the scent of the ocean, mingling with the laughter of children playing outside. On weekends, residents flocked to the marina, where boats bobbed gently in the water, their sails catching the sunlight. It was a place that promised relaxation and camaraderie, where neighbors waved to one another and shared stories of their lives by the sea. Amid this idyllic setting stood a stark contrast, Karen Mitchell's house. With its overly manicured lawn and an array of "no trespassing" signs, it served as a fortress for her rigid enforcement of HOA rules. Karen's presence loomed large over the neighborhood, her watchful gaze seemed to penetrate the very fabric of community life. She often patrolled the streets, clipboard in hand, ready to document any perceived violation of her precious regulations. To her, maintaining order was paramount, and she took pride in her self-appointed role as the enforcer of decorum. This tension between community spirit and Karen's authoritarian tendencies created an undercurrent of resentment among residents. Many felt stifled by her rules, longing for the freedom to express themselves without fear of repercussion. As summer approached and families prepared for weekends on the water, it became increasingly clear that not everyone shared Karen's vision of how life should be lived in Harborview. Little did they know that this simmering discontent would soon boil over into a conflict that would challenge both authority and community ties. It was a sunny Saturday morning when the incident unfolded, shattering the calm of Harborview. Alex had just returned from a long week of duty in the Coast Guard, eager to enjoy a well-deserved day on the water aboard their beloved boat, Serenity. The anticipation of sailing along the coastline filled them with excitement. However, as Alex walked down to the marina, a sense of unease washed over them. Serenity was nowhere in sight. Panic set in as Alex scanned the docks, their heart racing at the thought of theft. Just then, they spotted Karen strutting towards her home, a smug expression plastered across her face. As they approached her, Alex felt a mix of anger and confusion. "Karen! Have you seen my boat? It's missing!" They called out, desperation creeping into their voice. Karen turned slowly, her lips curling into a condescending smile. "Oh, that old thing. I had it removed. It was parked illegally according to HOA guidelines." Her tone dripped with self-satisfaction as she continued to explain how Serenity had violated her precious rules about boat storage. Alex's frustration mounted as they realized that Karen had taken matters into her own hands without any authority to do so. "You can't just take my boat without permission," they exclaimed, trying to maintain their composure. But Karen simply waved dismissively, relishing her perceived victory over Alex's loss. In that moment, the stage was set for an escalating conflict, one that would soon reveal both Alex's true capabilities and Karen's underestimation of the situation at hand. The realization hit Alex like a cold wave crashing against the shore. Serenity was gone. It wasn't just a boat to them, it was a piece of their identity, a cherished space for relaxation and adventure. As they stood at the empty dock, a mix of confusion and anger bubbled to the surface. How could Karen have taken their boat without even a moment's hesitation? The thought gnawed at Alex, making it hard to catch their breath. Determined to uncover the truth, Alex retraced their steps, questioning fellow boaters and neighbors who might have seen something. They felt like a detective piecing together clues, but the answers remained elusive. Many neighbors expressed sympathy, sharing their own frustrations with Karen's overreaching authority. "She doesn't have the right to do that," one resident remarked. Yet, none had witnessed the actual removal of Serenity. As Alex continued their search, they couldn't shake the feeling that Karen's actions were not just a petty power play, they were an affront to everything Alex stood for as a Coast Guard officer. The idea of someone undermining their rights infuriated them. Fueled by determination, Alex decided they wouldn't let this slide. With each passing hour, the urgency grew. They knew they had to act quickly before Karen could solidify her story or hide any evidence of her wrongdoing. Drawing on their training, Alex began formulating a plan, not just to retrieve their boat but also to remind Karen that there were consequences for overstepping boundaries in their community. Little did they know, this situation would escalate beyond mere retrieval, it would become a battle of wills that would engage the entire neighborhood. With a determined heart and a clear goal in mind, Alex set out on their quest to locate Serenity. They began by visiting the local marina office, hoping to gather any information about the boat's removal. The office was a hub of activity, filled with fishermen and families preparing for a day on the water. The marina manager, a friendly but busy woman named Linda, listened intently as Alex explained the situation. "I can't believe Karen would do something like that," Linda said, shaking her head. "But I can't release any information without proper documentation." Frustration simmered beneath Alex's surface, but they remained composed. After all, being in the Coast Guard taught them the value of patience and strategy. Next, Alex decided to canvass the neighborhood. They knocked on doors, speaking to neighbors who might have witnessed Karen's actions or seen Serenity being moved. Most residents were sympathetic, sharing their own grievances about Karen's overreach. A retired fisherman named Sam even mentioned having seen Karen's truck parked near the marina earlier that week. As Alex collected bits of information, they began to form a clearer picture of what had transpired. It became evident that Karen was not acting alone, she had enlisted a few unwitting neighbors to help her enforce her version of HOA rules. This revelation only fueled Alex's resolve to take action. With newfound determination, Alex realized they needed more than just words, they required evidence. They decided to go directly to the source, the HOA records. If they could uncover the guidelines regarding boat storage and any correspondence related to Serenity's removal, they would be one step closer to reclaiming what was rightfully theirs. The search was just beginning, and Alex was prepared to fight for justice in their community. With a folder full of notes and evidence in hand, Alex approached Karen's house, heart pounding with a mixture of anxiety and determination. The sun hung low in the sky, casting long shadows across the meticulously trimmed hedges that surrounded her property. Today was the day they would confront her about Serenity, and Alex was ready to stand their ground. As they knocked on the door, Alex could hear the faint sound of classical music playing inside. Karen opened the door, her expression shifting from surprise to annoyance as she recognized Alex standing there, armed with a sense of purpose. "What do you want?" she snapped, crossing her arms in an all-too-familiar gesture of defiance. "I need to talk to you about my boat," Alex said firmly, their voice steady despite the tension in the air. "I know you took it without my permission, and I'm here to get it back." Karen's eyes narrowed, and a smirk crossed her lips. "Oh really? You mean that old thing? I told you it was parked illegally. I did you a favor by having it removed." Alex took a deep breath, channeling their Coast Guard training as they laid out the facts. According to HOA regulations, you don't have the authority to remove someone's property without proper procedures. There were no warnings or notices given. As they spoke, Alex could see Karen's confidence begin to waver. "You're just trying to intimidate me," Karen shot back defensively, but there was a flicker of uncertainty in her eyes. "No, Karen. I'm here to make sure that everyone plays by the same rules." The confrontation heightened as Alex pressed on, determined to reclaim not only their boat but also respect for community standards that Karen had so carelessly disregarded. As the tension hung thick in the air, Alex decided it was time to reveal the trump card that would shift the balance of power. They took a step closer to Karen, their demeanor calm but assertive. "You might want to reconsider your next move," Alex said, their voice firm. "I'm not just any resident here, I'm an officer in the Coast Guard." The words landed heavily between them, and for a moment, Karen looked genuinely taken aback. The smirk faded from her face as she processed the implications of Alex's statement. "Coast Guard," she echoed incredulously, her tone dripping with skepticism. "What does that even matter? You're just trying to intimidate me with your uniform." "No, Karen," Alex replied, their resolve unwavering. "It matters because I understand maritime law and my rights as a boat owner. You acted outside your authority when you removed Serenity without proper procedure or notification." Karen's composure began to crack as Alex continued, detailing how her actions not only violated HOA rules but also crossed legal boundaries regarding personal property. The shift in dynamic was palpable. Karen had always assumed her position granted her unchallenged power, but now she was faced with someone who not only understood the law but also had the training and resources to enforce it. "And I'm prepared to take this further if necessary," Alex added, standing tall. "I have the support of my colleagues and evidence to back up my claims." With each word, Alex could see doubt creeping into Karen's eyes. This confrontation was no longer just about a missing boat, it was about authority and accountability, and Alex was ready to ensure that justice would prevail. As Alex stood their ground against Karen, a sense of empowerment surged through them. But they knew that the battle would not be won alone. The support of the community was crucial, and it was time to rally their neighbors to bring about change. Word of the confrontation spread quickly throughout Harborview. Residents began to gather, drawn by whispers of Alex's stand against Karen's overreach. Many had grown weary of Karen's constant surveillance and dictatorial enforcement of the HOA rules. A small group of neighbors approached Alex, expressing their solidarity. "We've had enough of her antics," said Linda, the marina manager who had been supportive from the beginning. "We want to help." Encouraged by this newfound support, Alex organized a meeting at the local community center. Flyers circulated, inviting residents to discuss the situation and brainstorm ways to hold Karen accountable. As neighbors filled the room, each voice shared stories of being bullied or intimidated by Karen in some way. This collective frustration created an atmosphere charged with determination. Alex took the floor, articulating their experience and emphasizing the importance of unity against unfair practices. "We can't let one person dictate how we live here," they urged, their passion igniting the crowd. "Together, we have the power to change things." The meeting ended with a plan. Residents would document any violations and grievances against Karen's actions and present them collectively to the HOA board. The community was ready to stand together, not just for Alex, but for everyone whose rights had been undermined. With renewed strength and a united front, they prepared to confront Karen once more, this time with an entire neighborhood backing them up. With the community rallying behind them, Alex knew it was time to implement a strategic response that would put pressure on Karen and the HOA. They gathered the notes and evidence they had compiled, along with the testimonies from neighbors who had experienced similar frustrations. Together, they formed a clear narrative. Karen's actions were not only unjust but also detrimental to the spirit of their community. Alex decided to draft a formal letter addressed to the HOA board, detailing the events surrounding Serenity's removal. They outlined the violation of property rights and the lack of proper procedures followed by Karen. With support from their neighbors, Alex included a petition signed by residents who were equally fed up with Karen's heavy-handed tactics. The petition highlighted the need for fair enforcement of HOA rules and demanded accountability for those who overstepped their authority. In addition to the letter, Alex organized a community meeting with the HOA board, inviting all residents to attend and voice their concerns. They prepared talking points to ensure that every resident felt empowered to speak up against Karen's behavior. As the meeting day approached, anticipation built within Harborview. The neighborhood buzzed with excitement and determination, ready to confront Karen not just as individuals but as a united force. When the day finally arrived, Alex stood at the front of the room, flanked by supportive neighbors. They felt a sense of purpose wash over them as they prepared to present their case. This was more than just about getting serenity back. It was about standing up for fairness and ensuring that everyone in Harborview had a voice, one that could no longer be silenced by an overly entitled HOA president. The day of the showdown arrived, and the community center buzzed with energy as residents filled the seats, eager to witness the confrontation. Alex stood at the front, flanked by their neighbors, ready to present their case to the HOA board. The atmosphere was electric with anticipation and solidarity. This was not just a battle for a boat but a fight for the community's integrity. As the meeting began, Karen strode in, her usual air of confidence replaced by a hint of apprehension. She glanced around, taking in the crowd that had gathered. Alex noted the slight tremble in her hands as she clutched her clipboard, a sign that she may have underestimated the strength of community support. Alex took a deep breath and stepped forward. "Thank you all for coming today," they began, their voice steady and clear. "We are here to address not only the wrongful removal of my boat but also the broader issue of fairness and respect within our community." As they spoke, Alex presented the evidence, testimonies from neighbors, documentation of HOA rules that had been violated, and the petition signed by many residents. The crowd murmured in agreement, and Alex's confidence grew with each supportive nod. Karen attempted to interrupt with her usual defensive remarks, but this time she was met with a chorus of voices from the community expressing their shared frustrations. "Enough is enough," shouted one neighbor, echoing what many felt. The board listened attentively as tension mounted. For once, Karen seemed cornered and outnumbered. As Alex wrapped up their presentation, they looked directly at Karen and said, "We deserve a community where everyone's rights are respected, including mine. It's time we hold each other accountable." The room erupted in applause, marking a pivotal moment in their collective stand against entitlement and injustice. The tension in the room was palpable as the board members exchanged glances, weighing the evidence presented and the overwhelming support from the community. Finally, the head of the HOA board cleared his throat and addressed the crowd. "After reviewing all the information and hearing from both sides, we will be taking immediate action regarding this situation." Alex held their breath, feeling a mix of hope and anxiety swirl inside. The board member continued, "We acknowledge that proper procedures were not followed in the removal of Serenity. Therefore, we will ensure its return to you, Alex, immediately." A wave of applause erupted in the room, echoing the relief and triumph felt by those gathered. Karen's face turned crimson with disbelief as she processed the outcome. For once, she seemed at a loss for words. It was clear that her authority had been challenged, and she was now facing a united community that refused to be intimidated. As Alex stepped forward to thank the board, they felt a sense of empowerment wash over them. "Thank you for making the right decision," they said. "This isn't just about my boat, it's about ensuring that we all have a voice and that nobody can take our rights away." With Serenity on its way back home and Karen's reign of terror significantly diminished, the community began to discuss ways to improve communication within the HOA. Together, they proposed regular forums where residents could voice concerns and address issues collaboratively. As Alex looked around at their neighbors, friends who had stood by them in this battle, they realized that Harborview was no longer just a collection of houses, it was a true community built on respect and shared values. The conflict may have started with a boat, but it ended with something much greater, a renewed commitment to fairness and unity among neighbors. In the weeks that followed the showdown, life in Harborview began to transform. Alex watched as the community blossomed into a more cohesive unit, united by the recent conflict and the lessons learned from it. Residents now felt empowered to voice their concerns, knowing that together they could advocate for fairness and accountability. Alex took pride in their role as a catalyst for this change, but they also reflected on the broader implications of what had transpired. The experience had reinforced their belief in the importance of community support and collaboration, values that resonated deeply with their training in the Coast Guard. Just as they had learned to rely on their team during missions at sea, they had witnessed firsthand how collective strength could overcome adversity on land. As for Karen, her influence began to wane. The board decided to implement regular community forums where residents could express their concerns and work together to address issues before they escalated. While she still held her position, her authority was now tempered by the knowledge that she could no longer act unilaterally without facing scrutiny from her neighbors. Sitting on Serenity once again, gently rocking at its dock, Alex savored the feeling of freedom it brought. It symbolized not just their love for the water but also the spirit of resilience that now thrived within Harborview. As they gazed out at the horizon, Alex felt confident that the community would continue to protect each other's rights and foster an environment where everyone could feel safe and respected. This conflict had been a turning point, not just for Alex and their boat, but for everyone who called Harborview home. Together, they had forged a new path forward, one based on mutual respect and community spirit, ensuring that no one would have to fight alone again.